So guys, this is a straightforward video. It's not a fluff video, and it's important to get out. So I want to say, take it with a grain of salt, use your own judgment, and if you don't like it, I don't know what to tell you. If you do, thank you so much for supporting the channel. Welcome back, and I hope that you decide to come back after this video plays. So hit that like button before we begin and share it out. Good morning, welcome back to the channel. How are you guys doing today? Today is Tuesday, September 27th. Yesterday was my oldest daughter's birthday on the 26th. So y'all, I took yesterday off. Not for any other reason but to mentally decompress. Okay.
I really wanted to get it right, trying to find some balance in my life.
Okay, so we are dealing with a lot of things going on. We have a barreling storm in Florida, which seems to keep getting bigger and bigger as time goes on. We also have runs on grocery stores, empty stores for miles and miles. This is why we prepare. This is why we have to do what we need to do before things take place. This leads me to this whole video right here, you guys. We really need to think about preparation, and are we prepared? Are we prepared for any situation? Are we prepared for a power grid failure? Because people probably are going to lose their utilities down there in Florida. But are we prepared on a normal basis if the grid were to be taken down, whether it be by the government or by weather? And no matter how much we are prepared, we're not ever going to be fully prepared. Honestly, right now, if you're having to Google small things, then you aren't prepared. You don't know this yourself. And after watching, and this is going to be controversial, Candace Owens, and I don't know why, because I let a lot of people make me think, well, she's off her rocker, she's this, that. I had actually the time yesterday to listen to a lot of things that she had to say, and a lot of it made perfectly good sense. Now, let's get this straight. I do not agree with everything that she has said, and no one should 100% agree with anybody with anything that they say. You should have a mind to think of your own and what your opinion is. But on this, I totally agree with her. We are not as prepared as we think we are. If you're still looking up recipes and you don't know that recipe offhand, then you're in trouble. You need to get books. You need to start writing down these recipes. Start writing down the things that you need to know, because we are not guaranteed this grid to stay up. The best way to know everything, or some of everything that you need to know in order to survive, because that is the real deal. Are you going to be able to survive if that grid goes down? Do you know how to start a fire? Do you know how to cook outdoors? Do you know how to live off your land? Do you know any of these things? If you don't, then you need to start learning it now. Paying attention to the things that's going on. Most of us are not. And if you're not, you need to pay attention, because the more you pay attention now, the more you can prepare. The more you can say, I don't want someone controlling my food. I don't want someone telling me how much I can get of whatever. As it stands, the system that we are in right now is set up for us to fail. It's set up for us to be weak. It's set up for us to be dependent. It's telling us nothing is happening. You don't need to stockpile anything. We're not having an issue with supply chain shortages. And if we are, it's just some gaps. You're just missing some things. But guess what? They were missing some things in Florida. They had gaps, they had shortages, and all it took was this Hurricane Ian to step in, and within hours, those stores were wiped completely out. Within hours, gas stations were running out of fuel. So ask yourself, are you really prepared? What are you doing today to prepare for your tomorrow and your survival and tomorrow and thriving, not just surviving. I'm going to share this clip, and I hope that it doesn't get taken down, because it is very important and informative, and it makes you think, gee, I thought I was prepared, more prepared than that, you know, because we feel like, well, I'm not dependent on the government for anything, but you actually are if you're not preparing your home for what you need, if you're not stocking up on your food and your water, if you're not making sure that you have a way to have power when the grid goes down, if you don't have a generator, if you don't have solar panels, if you don't have all those things that you might need on a daily basis that we don't even think about in place if and when something does happen. So there is the World Economic Forum. They did predict the C-19, believe it or if you want to or not. They are now predicting the cyber pandemic that's going to happen. I've been talking about cyber again. I have been talking about cyber attacks and how many cyber attacks we have had over the past few years that aren't even being reported. Some are on water treatment facilities. When we as human beings, if nothing else, need to take control of the information that we are receiving, where we're receiving it from, and if you're receiving it at all. Because if you look at mainstream media and the news outlets, they only want to cover and push their agenda for certain things. Right now, it's the situation with Trump, January 6th, and every now and then they'll squeeze in something. That is what's most important to them. So find some place that's going to give you information that you can actually use. Nothing wrong with if that's what they want to do, but they're about making money too. They are a business, they're a corporation, and that's what it's about. And they're going to do what they feel is necessary. So again, we need to be in cost management mode when it comes to our own homes and how much we're doing and what we're doing and why we're doing it, and get busy doing it.
What would you do if they brought the power grid down? And by they, I mean if the government purposefully brought the power grid down. And I'm not asking that question for fun. I'm asking that question because the World Economic Forum is predicting that a cyber pandemic, you can look this up, they've been running exercises about it this year, is inevitable. You're probably saying, what is a cyber pandemic? It doesn't make any sense. Like, you know, what are we even talking about? If you look into the exercise that they have run this year, I believe they ran it in July. They've been meeting and talking about the cyber pandemic, what it would look like. Essentially, their idea is that they're going to have to sanitize the internet because a bug, think of it as like a coronavirus for your computer, is going to sweep globally. And the only way they're going to be able to stop this bug from infecting everything is to effectively shut down the internet, right? And they were talking about bringing down the power grid in an effort to do this. So imagine the government bringing down the power grid and you would not have access to anything that required an electrical charge. If this sounds crazy, dystopian, and like a nightmare to you, first and foremost, this happens in other countries, right? Obviously in Cuba, when the government needs to stop people from communicating, they just bring down the power grid, right? When the uprisings were happening in Cuba, I believe that was earlier this year, coronavirus time feels like, I don't know if it was the end of last year or early this year, they just brought down the entire electrical grid. But of course, Western nations would never do something like that. If they do it, it's because they need to do it, not because they're becoming evil communist dictators, but because they would need to do it for our benefit. So they were talking about the government bringing down the power grid. And until they come up with a vaccine, I'm not kidding, this is their words, not mine, a vaccine of sorts for the internet, where they would be able to cleanse it and purge it of all of these things that are making it vulnerable.
The COVID-19 pandemic has shaken our economies and societies to the core and shown us how vulnerable we are to biological threats. In the digital world, similar risks are being overlooked right now, every 8.5 seconds, infecting over 75,000 devices in 10 minutes and almost 11 million devices in 24 hours. The only way to stop the exponential propagation of a COVID-like cyber threat is to fully disconnect the millions of vulnerable devices from one another and from the internet. All of this in a matter of days. A single day without the internet would cost our economies more than $50 billion US, and that's before considering the economic and societal damages should these devices be linked to essential services such as transport or healthcare.
Well, among those things, they brought up Bitcoin. which is so funny, that one thing that the government can't get a handle on, that is representing a threat to them and the financial markets, their control of the financial markets, would be Bitcoin. And suddenly, in running the simulation, they realized that Bitcoin, could potentially be a problem. If you think I'm kidding, you can look this up. It is called a cyber pandemic. And it's made me realize that we're a very weak generation of people. When I'm talking about weak, I'm talking about millennials, I'm talking about, perhaps even the baby boomers, of how little we actually learned about survival. They're not learning engineering, and they're not going to be able to do anything in life because they're not learning any hard academics, any hard skills. And I talked about that so much until I started talking about this potential cyber pandemic, and I realized actually my generation was also dumbed down, because you can read all the books in the world, every book in the entire universe, right? But if you don't actually know how to grow your own food, if you don't actually know how to survive off of your own land, how smart are you?
I'm stuck in traffic, but kids need to know that vegetables don't come from the grocery store. They need to know you have to plant a seed, that you have to nurture that seed. They need to know that. But they're not teaching that in a lot of schools. They're not teaching agricultural classes in a lot of schools. And I think that's what she means by they dumb the kids down, so that they'll be more dependent on the government. If we were to ask a group of kids, where do you get vegetables from? I think 8 out of 10 would probably say we go to the grocery store and we get it. That's a problem. That is a problem, you guys.
We have convinced ourselves, especially me, I grew up in Connecticut, like coastal elites, very close to New York City. Like, we have convinced ourselves, and the people that live in these cities, Los Angeles, people that live in New York, as they're saying, we need the Green New Deal, get rid of this, so we don't want to be dependent on our own energy. Like, we'll send it overseas. We have convinced ourselves that we're so forward and we're so progressive that we're actually regressive. We don't know anything. We don't know how to grow our own food. The majority of us know how to grow our food. I have made it my entire initiative since moving to Tennessee is for my husband and I to be able to do everything by ourselves. I said to my husband, I need to learn how to grow vegetables. Like, this is the most important thing. I need to be able to learn how to grow vegetables. We're going to get some chickens. Like, I never thought I would say this. Like, we're going to be getting chickens next year because I want to be able to know that we have food on our own property. I do not want to be a dependent. So for so long, I had in my head that if you're not on welfare, right, then you're not government dependent, but that is so wrong, right? If you don't know how to survive, if you do not know how to grow your own food, if you don't, everything you would have to know if the power grid went down, right? If you don't have a generator, if you don't have solar panels, I mean, I'm just spitting here, but like, think about all of the things. Actually imagine your life if the power grid was taken down. Like, imagine how many things you'd have to know, right? And then I was saying to my cousin earlier, I was saying how weird it is. Every time if I have a question about something, even if I'm working on a recipe, I'm like, oh my God, what is the ingredient for this again? And I Google it. Everything you have to Google, you don't actually know. You're relying on the internet to tell you something that you don't actually have stored in your own brain, right? So we're so convinced that we're so forward and we're so progressive because we can get an answer fired back at us in a couple of seconds. But in reality, we don't know anything. If you have to ask Google, you don't possess the information within your own mind. And I've realized that big pharma has made us a lot more ignorant. The school systems have made us a lot more ignorant. And it's not just the generations beneath us. It started with us. So that's it. That's all I want to say. It was just a random thought that was on my mind that I wanted to share. If you agree, then maybe stock up on some stuff in your house that you might need. Maybe buy some books.
Still stuck in traffic. So you guys, learn a skill, okay? Do you know how to bake bread? Do you know how to make your own pasta? Not that you have to, but do you know how? Do you want to know how? Have you written those recipes down? I have, so I may make it right and I may not, but I'm going to be practicing in the meantime. Do you have the items that you need in your household? Do you know how to fish if you had to, get some protein? Do you know how to hunt? Are you raising animals? Are you growing a garden? Are you saving your seeds? So many things we need to learn. Can you start a fire? I'm still working on that one too. Not as prepared as I thought, huh? All of this can be overwhelming. I know. A lot of it is overwhelming. But if we take it one moment at a time and not try to do everything at one time, we could possibly learn the skills that we need with enough time to spare before the SHTF really does go down. The world is out of control right now. We can't rely on anything to be normal. And what is normal anymore? I have no idea. So guys, I hope that you got something from this video. I hope it makes you think, and also makes you start preparing if you have not, and maybe step your game up if you already are preparing. Let me know in the comments what you think, and we'll talk about it. We can agree to disagree, but please be polite and kind in the comments.
I really wanted to get it right, trying to find some balance in my life. I never really put up a fight, and now I'm losing sleep.